Community Health webinar series for the year of 2017. Today's topic will be on a media toolkit presented by Deverell Yellow Earring. First, I would like to let you know that today's session will be recorded and we'll be sending out a recording. So those who may know anyone that might find this topic of interest, you can go ahead and forward them the recorded presentation as well as the evaluation feedback form. And just to let you know, we will be sending an evaluation feedback form during the presentation. So at any point you would like to fill out the presentation as Deverell is talking, you may do so. And also please to save all questions till after the presentation. And a quick reminder for everyone to mute your microphone during the presentation. So at this time, I would like to present Deverell Yellow Earring. He is an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. He was born and raised on the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation in Eagle Butte, South Dakota. After graduating from Cheyenne Eagle Butte High School, he obtained a Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administration from United Tribes Technical College in Bismarck, North Dakota. Deverell enjoys playing basketball, video games, skateboarding, and exercising. He strives to learn about his culture and live a healthy lifestyle. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Deverell. And Deverell, if you would like to share your screen and go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Can you all see my screen okay?
Everything's perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for being here this afternoon. Thank you, Eugene, for that beautiful introduction. I didn't realize you knew so much about me, so thank you. Today, we're going to be discussing a media toolkit. So I'm working with the Great Plains Partnerships to Improve Community Health program. We've developed a communication plan for our program, and part of our communication plan is a media toolkit. So just a quick background on a media toolkit. A media toolkit is intended to enhance the ability to educate communities through media relationships, outreach, and design. A media toolkit provides a variety of descriptions, models, and templates to help you engage media outlets and the community at large. One of our biggest goals for our media toolkit is to be able to train our tribal partners with the media toolkit, so that way they can carry on and develop media relationships with local media outlets in their community, and hopefully they can use this information and become on a national scale and be able to respond to media inquiries, be able to develop your own media materials, and be able to share all the great information that their program is doing, that our tribal partners are doing, or that anybody's doing in their community. So that's kind of a background of what the media toolkit is, and that's kind of why we wanted to develop a toolkit. So the toolkit is designed in 5 different steps. So steps 1 through 5. Number 1 being creating key messages. Number 2 being designing press materials. Step 3, planning outreach. Step 4, training a spokesperson. And step 5, requesting media. So to begin my presentation, we're going to be covering step 1 of the media toolkit, which is creating key messages. Creating key messages at the beginning of your program or your project is going to be really helpful. It'll help all of your employees, your staff, your community speak with one solid voice. You all saying the same thing. Key messages are used to respond to reporters' inquiries, information requests, and press releases. So when you have your key messages in place, you can use those key messages to respond to any type of questions that you may receive from the press or from the media or from anywhere in the community. The messages that you create should be brief and clear to your target or to your population or to your community. And key messages should be the same throughout all your materials that you develop. So my next slide here, I just have a few tips for writing some key messages for your program. The first tip is for your messages to be concise. Each statement should be 1 to 3 sentences, and you should be able to read your message in about 30 seconds. The second tip I have for you is your message to be strategic. Messages should define and differentiate the values of your project, kind of specify what your project is and how it's different from other projects and how it's different from some of the other work that's being done. So make your messages strategic. The third tip I have for you is to be relevant. You don't want to share a key message that's something that's irrelevant, kind of way out off in left field somewhere that nobody knows, understands. So just make sure you keep your messages relevant. And then balance your messages on what you need to say with what your audience needs to know, what you want them to know, what they need to know about your program, your project, or whatever you're working on. The next tip is your messages should be compelling. Messages are designed to stimulate a call to action. You want all your key messages that you write to have a call to action. You want to put it on somebody, put it on whoever you're telling your message to take action, So the next tip I have for you is to keep your messages simple. Messages are really easy to understand, easy to read. Avoid jargon and acronyms. Being in the public health field, acronyms can get very, very tricky. So try to avoid acronyms when you're developing your key messages. Next tip is to be memorable. Messages are really easy to recall. Like if you tell somebody one of your messages, they'll be able to repeat it. They can easily interpret it, and they can go on and share that message easily without hesitating or without being confused about it. The next tip is your messages should be real. Use a very active voice rather than a passive voice. You want your messages to be the stuff that is ongoing, stuff that you're working on now, not stuff that happened in the past or things like that. So, and my final tip in writing and developing key messages is to tailor them. Tailor your messages to reflect not only on your own community, but also on the work that's being done. And again, it goes back to being strategic and relevant, and you have the ability to make your messages fit your program or your project or your media campaign or whatever work that you're doing. So a few tips for you guys when developing key messages. So I just added a sample of a key message. So this is from the National Infant Immunization Week that the CDC does. Last year they did some key messages. So as you can see, we have 3 key messages listed from their campaign that they did for the immunization week. And they're really easy to understand. As you can see, 2 to 3 sentences. If you take time to read this example here, it's under 30 seconds. It's concise, it's relevant. All the tips that I just gave you in the previous slide kind of fit in this example that I'm giving you here. So I thought that was pretty cool example to share with you guys. So that's step 1, was developing key messages. Now we're going to move on to step 2, which is kind of the biggest step that a lot of you guys are going to run into when using this toolkit. Step 2 is designing press materials. So providing press materials through media outreach is essential to the success of your program, because this is where your key messages are going to be put in to different types of materials. So these materials will assist reporters, media specialists, communication specialists, writers, journalists, anybody that is interested in following your program. Once you got your key messages all developed and put together, step 2, we'll put those key messages into different types of press materials. So I'm going to go ahead and cover a huge list of materials that you guys are able to develop. The different types of press materials that I have in the toolkit are a press release, public service announcements, letters to the editor, some MAT articles. They're also known as Dropin Articles, some success stories, and storytelling or digital storytelling. So the first type of press material I have for you guys is a press release. A press release is just a brief narrative of news, information about an event or an activity that's coming up, or something that you've already done, or something that you've accomplished, letting the press know about your results. Some of the things to include on a press release: contact information, a headline or a title, a statement or a quote from one of your leaders or a spokesperson from your program or your project, and information about your issue or event, just letting them know, why you guys did this, what happened, how many people were there, and what was the outcome, what was your results, things like that. So some couple examples of the press release. The example on the left side of your screen, you can see that they include the contact information at the top of the press release, and then they go into their and then they have their title and then their body of the press release. The example on the right, all it has is the date, the title, but the contact information is written within the body of the press release. So you have two different options of a press release. These are just two examples I wanted to give you guys so you guys can get an idea. Generally, a press release about 3 paragraphs. Put your critical information at the top, the very first paragraph, to give them the whole shebang. And then in the middle, you kind of go a little bit more in depth. And then at the bottom, you tell your results and how, if something's going to happen again, if you're going to do it again. So here's some cool examples of a press release for you guys to look at. So I think, and another thing for the press releases, you always got to have like official media release or official press release or something at the top and the date. So that way the newspapers or the news stations know that, it's a press release. So. The next press material I have for you guys is a public service announcement. Public service announcements are non-commercial. They're not paid radio or television messages used to promote information for the public good. So some tips for developing a public service announcement: if you have any media outlets in your community, you want to contact them and ask them, how long can a public service announcement be? How many words? Do you guys have a word limit? Is there a time limit? Is there a specific time we have to meet for a public service announcement? And normally, some of them range between 15 seconds to 16 seconds. A minimum of about 40 words to up to 150 words for a public service announcement. So those are some things to ask the media outlets in your community about public service announcements. And also, if you create a list, once you contact your media outlets, just create a list of people who allow public service announcements to be run on their stations or on their networks or whatever that might be. So, so here is just a quick script I wanted to show you guys. It's a 30-second audio going back to creating a key message. Here is a fighting flu public service announcement. It's 30 seconds. It's, as you can see, it's about three sentences. So I wanted to just share that with you. This is just a script. And within the toolkit that I've developed, I've provided an example of how to write an audio script. So that's included in the toolkit. So if my link works here, I'll be able to show you guys that 30-second audio, and I hope you can hear it. Let me know if you can't.
Each year, more than 200,000 people are hospitalized with flu. Like all Americans, Native peoples and tribal communities need to protect themselves. Get vaccinated every year. Cover your coughs and sneezes. Wash your hands often. And if you're sick, stay home. Protect the circle of life. Know the facts about the flu.
Were you guys able to hear that okay? Okay,
yes.
Yeah, so that's an example of a 30-second PSA. It's not nothing too compelling. They created a key message, 2 to 3 sentences, and the actor, of course he's an actor, he's good at memorizing scripts, but anybody can read a two-sentence paragraph and be able to develop a public service announcement that way. And that was a video version. There's also, and then just cut out the video, and then you have just an audio you can play on the radio or something. Just send it to your radio station. They can play that audio for you. So just wanted to share that example with you guys. Next press material I have for you guys is a letter to the editor. Not sure if everybody reads newspapers. Sometimes the newspapers cover various topics and they have like an opinion section, things like that. A lot of newspapers are open to letters to the editor. Just a few tips for you about letters to the editor. The letters can be written by any reader of a publication. If you read a newspaper, a magazine, or anything, they're more likely to publish a letter to the editor if it addresses something that was recently published in their newspaper or their publication. And it also provides a public forum for you all to use. I mean, if you have an issue or a topic that you're trying to get addressed, if somebody, you know, shares false information, you want to clear things up, letters to the editor are really a great way to have that public forum for everybody to learn about what you're doing in the community and things like that. So anytime you write a letter to the editor, make sure you reference which article or which publication you're writing to or writing in response to, things like that. So these are really cool. I've actually never done a letter to the editor yet. Something I do plan on doing in the future. I like sharing opinions and things. I like reading newspapers and just learning about all the different things that are going on, and it's a good way to put in, you know, your perspective into a newspaper in response to any kind of issues that are being covered in that publication. So, and it's just a basic letter, business style letter. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I didn't include an example of a letter, but I can include that in the toolkit too, just so you know what it looks like. The next press material I have for you guys is a MATS article. It's also called a drop-in article. Basically, it's like a one-page article, very effective and cost-efficient way to spread information about the work that you're doing in the community. This can be used to share some of your success stories that you're experiencing, you know, little small successes or huge successes. They're similar to like a feature story, kind of some soft news kind of deals where, like I said, you know, small success, something real small that you want to highlight, you know, hey, we did something small, but, you know, it's a big component to our big picture, our overall goal. And I think drop-in articles are really important for that kind of thing. And these MAT articles or drop-in articles are designed to be like a direct insertion. So like just develop a MAT article and people can plug that into their newspaper. They can plug it into a magazine. They can put it on their website. It's all in one format, and they can just use it wherever. Just that's why they call it a drop-in article. You know, it's already done. It's published. They can put it wherever. So, some tips for writing a MAT article, a drop-in article. Of course, try to keep them to one page. Include a photo or a graphic. Make it local to fit your community, you know, with stats or quotes or contact information from somebody in that community you're working with. And try to figure out what format they prefer. Like if it's a magazine or a newspaper, you know, do you want a PDF version? Do you want a Word document? Do you want a JPEG? Figure out what works best for them and use that format for your drop-in article. And another great tip for that is to offer a solution in your writing when you're writing your drop-in articles, so that way people aren't questioning, you know, the next article that you're going to do. You know, just leave them with some really good feedback or some good news, so that way they're not questioning your article or anything like that. So that's some information about a drop-in article, and I included a couple examples for you. The example on the left is kind of like a 2-column drop-in article. They have just a 2-column. You can see they have the title, and they have a couple graphics in there. So if some people, like a newspaper, wants a 2-column drop-in article or something, or you just want it 1 column, kind of figure that out. The one on the right is kind of a more traditional drop-in article. This page can be plugged into a newspaper. It can be plugged into a program. It can be plugged into a newspaper, wherever somebody wants to publish that. Just again, figure out which media outlets, what kind of format that they prefer for your drop-in articles or your MAT articles. So, the next press material I have for you guys is a success story. Success stories are narratives that highlight the achievements and progress of a program. Success stories can develop over time. Like I said, you have these small successes that are leading up to your big success, your overall goal. When you reach your overall goal, that's when the success story can come into play, and you can talk about the whole project as a whole. And effective success stories can be a valuable tool to educate potential partners or stakeholders. So if you're looking for other tribal programs to invest into your program and to continue the work that you're doing, you know, you have a really good, solid success story to share with everybody, with the community. You can get a lot of buy-in that way. So success story should include the following content: a strong title, what kind of challenges that you guys faced on the program or project, a solution, a summary of your work, how you're going to sustain your success, how you're going to sustain that success in the future. Get a quote from leaders or spokesperson, you know, somebody who led the program or somebody who's really in a leadership position. You know, if your chairman wants to quote some of your successes or anything like that. And then you want a section that talks about getting involved. How can somebody get involved with your program, with your project? Just include ways to get involved. You know, visit our website, check us out on social media, and you can include a photo or a graphic. It's optional. You know, you can put a picture of your, you know, if you developed a community garden, you know, put a picture of your garden or something like that. If you built a playground, put a picture of the playground that you guys built. You know, put all that stuff in your success story. So I included an example of a success story here. This is a success story that we wrote for the PITCH program, the Great Plains Partnerships to Improve Community Health. This story that I'm sharing here talks about my role as the communications and outreach coordinator and how I've impacted the program, bringing in that media and that communication and really strengthening that presence here in the Great Plains region at the Tribal Chairman's Health Board here in Rapid City. So this is a really cool success story, but just a little template like this. You have your summary, you have your challenge, what challenges we faced, how to get involved. I have a cool quote here. We have a solution, we have the results, and we also have how we're sustaining our success or how we're going to sustain our success in the future when it comes to communication. So it's a cool example. I'm sorry if it's a little hard to read. I kind of had to shrink it a little bit, so forgive me for that. My next press material I have for you guys is storytelling. Stories are defined as a narrative or a tale of true or made up events. Stories are a great way to communicate, entertain, and pass on traditions. And it also shares knowledge that can initiate a shift in an attitude or a belief or a behavior. We wanted to add this to the toolkit to kind of have a more traditional approach. I know here in the Great Plains region, we have a lot of oral traditions that we want to pass on. A lot of things are heard by mouth, and storytelling, I think, plays a huge role in that. Sometimes people don't have a chance to, you know, really sit down and write things down or to type things up. You know, sometimes people just have time to talk, you know, and that's when storytelling comes into play. You know, let's talk about something, you know, let's share our experience, let's share our story, and let's move on from there. And then when you share those stories get passed on to more and more people. So I feel like that's a really great tool to include in our toolkit here. Another form of storytelling, digital storytelling. So taking a more technological advanced approach to storytelling, using multimedia technology to record a story, you know, sit down with one of your elders, you know, get a camera or record them, something that gives you a visual feeling of the process or of the knowledge that's being shared. Sometimes they're personal experiences told through first-person perspective. You know, we don't know what it took to accomplish what you accomplished. You know, can you tell us? You know, tell us your story of how you got to where you are. They combine narration, images, sound, video. It's kind of like a short movie. You know, a lot of documentaries do this kind of thing, digital storytelling. If you want to do a documentary on some of the programs or projects that you're working on in your community, that would be really awesome. That's a digital story. And they also enable participants to develop their own media messages for health or wellness that's relevant to their own community. So if somebody wants to develop a digital story, they can do that from their own community using their technology and, you know, localize it. So I have an example of a digital story I'd like to share with you guys. I hope you can hear it okay. This was one of the Red Talks that was done.
I am currently going to school at South Dakota State University. Getting educated is what I'm doing right now. And for myself, for my community life, what really helped me is talking to people about my goals and what I want to achieve. And like I tell my mom about like what I want to do, you know, my goals, my aspirations, and my hopes for my community. And then she went and then she told Martha, right? And Martha told you, and then like the word gets out, and people. That's what I like about my community is that they really push you and they really want to help you grow. And there's such a need for young people to go out and really educate themselves and get an education. And you know, if they move home, then we come home and we help our people.
So I just wanted to share that clip with you guys. I mean, that's a really simple digital story. You know, you set up a camera, you sit down, you do an interview with somebody. She shared her story about going to school, coming back, and helping her community, really what she believes in and how it got started. You know, that's a story. She's telling her story. She's sharing her story. That's a really cool tool to use. And it's on YouTube. And YouTube is a huge public forum. Anybody can go on YouTube and watch videos. So that's something to keep in mind. Nowadays you can go on a smartphone and record movies, you know, so, you know, make a documentary, follow each other around, and, you know, keep track of the work that you're doing in the community. That in the end, that's your story, you know. So it's a cool tip for you guys. So that concludes the step 2 of the toolkit, which is designing some press materials. I know they covered a lot in that section. That's one of the more bigger sections. You can kind of pick and choose what kind of press materials you're looking for, and once you have your key messages, you can use those key messages, develop your materials for that. So my next step I have for you guys, step 3, is planning outreach efforts. So once you've designed your press materials, once you've got your key messages developed, it's time to recognize the types of media outlets that you have in your community. The media outreach efforts can be done in 3 steps. Step 1 is compiling a media list. Step 2 is establishing those relationships with the media. Step 3 is maintaining those relationships with your media outlets. So step 1, compiling a media list. They'll help you recognize the names of editors, reporters, or journalists in your community. Include what types of stories that they cover, if they cover sports, if they cover health, if they kind of do a little bit of everything. Make sure you note that. And also keep track of when their submission deadlines are. That's really helpful, so you know when to get your information or when to get your news into them. Contact media people, communication specialists from different types of organizations, because sometimes they have really great connections that you can make. Go to your tribal office or to public health places. Ask them what kind of media coverage that they get. Go to medical centers, go to the hospitals, clinics. Go to your public affairs if they have a public affairs office. Go to your tribe, like I said earlier. Go to your community center. Figure out what kind of media outlets they use, and then you can kind of go from there, developing your media lists. Of course, it requires a lot of research. You got to find these reporters. You got to find the communication specialists. You got to find the media people to follow your program or to take on the news that you want to share. It's good to find, and maybe your program you're working with now has a media list in place already. You know, you can continue having that relationship with those media representatives that you've already worked with, or that are kind of already familiar with your program. And then track other media people that show up at your events or at your activities to see, maybe add them to your list as well. And another cool tip is that sometimes your media outlets or your sources that you come up with have their own database. They already have their own media list compiled of all the people that they're following. You know, maybe they'll be willing to share that with you. You can access their database. They might charge you a fee. You might do it for free. You never know. You know, it never hurts to ask. You know, save you some time. So another cool thing with compiling a media list is look for a community events calendar. Go to your media outlets, talk to these journalists any media representative, ask them if they have a community events calendar. Ask them what the process is of getting your event out onto the community events calendar. A majority of them have them, or they have like a bulletin board at their office or something where people can share information. Create your own calendar of events, and then share that calendar with them. It works both ways. And be sure to keep updated though. Any changes, anything like that. The reporters are really picky on changes. They want to know right away. They want to keep up-to-date information, because sometimes if they share false information, it makes them look bad as a reporter. So that's something to keep in mind when you're putting your lists together. Another thing with compiling a media list, special events. If you're hosting a community event for something, send out a media request. Go to your local media outlets. You have a flyer, you have a calendar, you have something to, you have an invitation for them. You want to attract them, as part of getting on the calendar. That's part of making your list. Take time to call them to confirm their attendance. Hey, are you able to come to my event tonight? If so, I'd like you to confirm. If they do confirm, then set up a press box, set up a press area. If they bring in a camera, designate an area for them to bring their camera. Like, hey, we want you here. We want you to cover this for us. Give them materials. You have your key messages. You have your press materials laid out for them. Give them a little hospitality room. And set up time for one of your spokespeople from your program or from your department to share information. Make some time for the reporter. Your spokesperson should make some time to talk with the reporters after the event or something like that. So those are some things to keep in mind when you're compiling your media lists, getting all a list of representatives that can take on your news. Step 2 of the outreach efforts is establishing those relationships. Again, call these people. Let them know, there's a lot of turnover. Sometimes reporters aren't with the same person. Sometimes they move on. Sometimes they don't even live in your community anymore. So, keeping track of these people and establishing that relationship with them, and it allows them to get to know you. Are you really somebody that I want to follow with news? Do you do your part for me? Do I do my part for you? It's kind of, they kind of figuring out who you are. And then an initial meeting when you're meeting these media people is outlines the work that you're coordinating. So it kind of gives them an idea of the kind of work that you're doing as well. So that's step 2 is just establish it. Call them, meet up with them, give them some soft news, kind of get them to buy into your program. Step 3 is, of course, maintain that relationship. After you got that relationship, you got your media list, you've called all these reporters, they know who you are, they know where you work, they know what kind of stuff that you're doing in the community. Follow up with them when they come to your event. Follow up with them. Hey, I saw you, thank you for coming. Send them information on stuff that's related to your own program. They're not just following your program. Share other news with them. Save them some time from researching. That really goes good with those reporters. Know their area of coverage, again, sending them relevant stuff that kind of relates to what they're covering or what kind of stories they're looking for. Be very mindful of their deadlines. You have to know when to call them, when to email them, when to submit your stuff. They're really tight on deadlines. And be very responsive and provide follow-up as soon as possible, because eventually you're going to become a source to them. They're looking for stories, they're looking for different topic areas. Hey, let's go to this person. They're a really good source. So step 4 of the toolkit, training a spokesperson. So just want to do a quick recap before we get into training a spokesperson. You have your step 1, creating your key messages. Step 2, creating your press materials. Step 3, you got your relationships with the media. Now step 4, training a spokesperson. So once you have those first 3 steps done, this should really be the easy part of the toolkit, because you have all that information in place. Now somebody just has to take all that information in and become your spokesperson for your program. And it could be anybody. It could be 1 person. It could be 10 people. But you have to identify a spokesperson who is going to be the voice of your program. Should have a great, great balance of technical expertise and a very engaging personality. and should be highly educated on the topics or objectives of the work that you're doing in your community, and should reach out to local or state officials. Another option is to reach out to local or state officials to serve as a spokesperson or an advisor to your spokesperson, just to give some more insight on different topics or areas of focus in your community. Preparing a spokesperson. So a spokesperson should always be ready for comments. They should be at every meeting. They should be at every activity, every event that you're doing. They should be ready for interviews. You should be practicing questions, answering, reviewing the key messages, giving them a background on the journalist that's coming or the editor that's coming to cover your story. A great tool is creating potential questions that the reporters might ask your spokesperson, and then just practicing with them. Like, okay, how would you answer this? How would you answer that? And then just practicing with them, keeping them engaged, keeping them up to date. And just prepare. Preparation is very important to getting your messages out. You don't want to be unprepared and say the wrong thing or give inaccurate information. So that's why it's very important to review your key messages, practice the remarks that you're going to make at an event, practice questioning and answering questions, reviewing the journalist's background, figure out what this journalist does, what kind of questions he likes to ask, what kind of stories they're looking for, and then stay on topic. That's a lot of things that a lot of time people get carried away with getting off topic. So then they start, like I said, sharing irrelevant information that's not relevant to your program or anything like that. So these are some good tools to keep in mind when you're not only selecting a spokesperson, but also preparing them to carry on your messages for your program. And our final step of the media toolkit, step 5 is of course requesting media. So once you have step 1 through 4 done, you can go ahead and go out and talk to these media outlets, talk to these journalists, talk to these editors. You have your spokesperson, you have your messages, you have your press materials, you have your media list. So coordinating some sort of campaign kickoff. So whatever type of project or work that you're doing, do a kickoff event. This would be a really good chance to test out your knowledge of your program and what your goals are, to increase the awareness of what you're trying to accomplish. This helps you develop that relationship with the media, with them coming to your kickoff event. You get a chance to put a name to a face, get to know them. This is where your preparation comes into place, ask questions, and should be organized and encourage support from everybody in the community. You want everyone to be there, leaders, spokespersons, just common families, anyone to come. So by following these 5 steps in the media toolkit, one of the most important things to keep in mind is timing. Timing is very important. When you send out information for your event, your campaign kickoff, or whatever you're trying to do, don't send it too early. Sometimes it gets filed away, people forget about it. Don't send it too late, because then it becomes old news, becomes the past. And research what types of publications, when they run their news, if they're daily, if they're weekly, if they're monthly. That's another thing to keep in mind when you're requesting media. And some more tips for you. Reporters receive numerous calls. People always want this media coverage, so it becomes a battle. So that's why I said keep in mind their deadlines, their submissions, build that rapport, provide accurate information in a timely manner to the reporter that you're working with, the correct reporter. You don't want to be sending information to the wrong guy, wrong person. And then if your spokesperson is not available, don't throw anybody under the bus if they're not ready, if somebody's not there. Just keep that in mind. Be prepared with information. Be persistent but respectful of the reporters. If they don't have time to cover you, that's understandable. And then again, be thankful for the reporters or journalists that are following your program or following the work that you're doing. Goes back to that, having that, establishing and maintaining that relationship with them. So just another quick review for you guys. The toolkit that we developed is a 5-step toolkit. Creating key messages, designing press materials, planning outreach, training a spokesperson, and requesting media. So that concludes my presentation on the media toolkit. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions. If anybody has questions regarding the media toolkit. This is kind of before we finalize the media toolkit, this is kind of our last gathering of information or feedback from you guys. So any questions that you have are going to be really helpful in us finalizing this toolkit. We don't want to leave anything out. So any questions that you have, if maybe I'm missing some press materials, or maybe you have more questions in a certain topic, this will be really valuable for us to gather information from you, so we can finalize this toolkit and we can have everything covered for you in the toolkit. So like I said, if there's any questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Deverell. That was some useful and helpful information on press materials that I had no idea could be utilized. There is a question in the chat box. It says, will the toolkit include information regarding social media marketing? And that's from Shelly.
When it comes to social media, if you develop, I'm not really sure if the social media stuff is considered a press material. I guess we can tell people how to create a Facebook page if that's what she's asking, or we can ask them. I mean, if you already have a Facebook page, I mean, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. I don't know if you can share your key messages on there. You can share your press release on there. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting that question right. Toolkit's basically just kind of a walkthrough of how to develop media stuff. So if we can maybe talk about how to create a social media campaign, I think is what she's trying to say.
I think we can elaborate more within the chat box. But for now, Renee has a question. What if a person doesn't feel comfortable being a spokesperson to share info on their program? Could you designate a spokesperson for a program? Just wondering.
Yeah, that's perfect. The more people we have, the more people you have sharing information about your program, the better. Again, it goes back to having those key messages. Everything is assimilated. Everybody should be speaking with one voice. So you can have, like I said, you can have 10 spokesperson, you can have one spokesperson. As long as you have those key messages, as long as you have your goals developed, anybody can be a spokesperson for your program. You just have to understand the kind of work that you're doing, and just keep them updated on what's going on. So yeah, it's great to have more than one spokesperson.
Okay, so Deverell, a question from me, and this is just from all the work that I saw you do throughout your program, being a communication specialist. What has been your biggest excuse me, what has been your biggest struggle or challenge when developing press materials or any kind of media resources?
The biggest challenge that I've experienced is I guess streamlining the review process. You really want to keep people in the loop on the kind of materials you're developing. You want them to review it. Sometimes people don't have enough time to take a look at the work that you're doing, you know, because I can create all this stuff on my own, but I would like somebody to review it for me, just to make sure it's accurate. You know, maybe there's a few typos in there or something. I think that's the most difficult part when it comes to developing, because people have different perceptions, people have different perspectives, they see things differently, they read things differently. So when you have 5 or 6 different people looking over a key message, you know, it could be rewritten 100 times or it could be rewritten 10 times, you know, you never know. The same thing with like a press release, you know, hey, I'm doing this press release, can you take a look at it? You have 4 or 5 different people looking at it, they're all gonna give you feedback, you know, so sometimes that's kind of a difficult thing to do is streamlining that review process. You know, can you review my materials for me? Sometimes it's really time consuming. So that's one barrier that I've ran into when it comes to developing materials.
Awesome, thank you, Deverell. So going back to the question before with Renee, can they have their own spokesperson be a TAC member who's also serving to be on your communications team, or also does the person need to be within the tribal advisory committee, or can it be a person such as yourself?
Spokesperson can be anybody who is very familiar with your program, who follows the work that you're doing. Could be a TAC member. A TAC member would be the perfect spokesperson. They know the program, they followed the program since they've been a part of it, they've been a part of some of the changes, they've been a part of some of the struggles, they're the ones who can really share the story about your program. I could be a spokesperson. I would probably just follow this media toolkit and figure out your program. That's why we developed the toolkit, was for people to understand what it takes to become a spokesperson, all the steps required. So yeah, anybody can be a spokesperson. You just gotta know how to talk, I guess.
Thank you, Deverell. We also have another question.
Yeah.
We also have another question from Heather Larson. She's a one-woman team in her office, which makes it very difficult to make the time for community engagement involvement. Any tips for how to handle this, or how much outreach should be done on a monthly or quarterly basis? They're a fairly new tribal program, so the need is there.
It's going to be difficult if you're like a one-person team developing any type of materials for your program. Again, it goes back to that barrier of having other people review it for you. And it does require research. If you're looking for media people to cover your program or cover your work, it gets very time consuming. Me, myself, I'm the designated communications guy here at the health board. So I take a lot of time developing those relationships with media and doing all the communication stuff. And that's a full-time position for me to do that kind of thing. So I feel for you when you say you're a one-woman team, because one idea that we've come up with was developing a communication team. If you have any community members that are interested in helping your program, maybe developing a communication team that will help you with that process of developing key messages or developing some press materials, kind of getting that collaboration, and then using this toolkit can help you have those relationships with the media, and it'll be easier. Maybe your communication team can use this toolkit as their starting ground, to help you get those messages out for your program. And you say you're a new program, and this is perfect. You want to develop messages at the beginning of your program. You want to carry those messages on throughout the life of your program, and you want to say the same things and accomplish those goals with your program. So I think this will be a great opportunity for you to use the toolkit, maybe get a communication team, somebody to help you implement this toolkit in your community. So I hope that answers your question. The media stuff is kind of a full-time thing, especially the writing part of it too. You really have to write a lot. You have to have strong writing skills when you're doing the public service announcements, when you're doing the press releases, when you're writing key messages, so I hope that answers your question. My suggestion would be maybe a communication team if you have a few people in your community are willing to help you with your program, and maybe they're looking for some media coverage too. Hey, let's work together. Let's get these media people to follow our programs. So That would be my suggestion.
Hi, this is Marie, and I know that sometimes with limited resources, it could be difficult to start up an entire media campaign. So one suggestion that I would have is to work through social media outlets and kind of share the activities you're doing with the community through there, especially since a lot of people from our tribes are on social media, specifically Facebook.
And I just wanted to clarify with the question before regarding the social media marketing. Are you thinking about maybe adding something to the toolkit that talks about maybe how to do a social media campaign? Is that kind of along the lines of what you're asking? Because I think that would be a great addition to the toolkit if that's what you're asking. Because some people don't know how to do a social media campaign or have never worked with a social media campaign before. So I'm not sure who asked that question, but if there's any more questions.
So I think if there isn't any more questions, I would like to give some reminders. Our next community health webinar is and will be on February, well, it's tentatively on February 8th, 2017 on Health Resources and Services Administration. And that'll be presented by Nick Zacconi from HRSA. Also, if you would like any types of information regarding today's presentation, you can email me or Deverell, and I'll be sending out a reminder and the recorded presentation and evaluation feedback form as well. But if you would like any of the information, such as the examples that he presented, any types of media press material that you would like, just let me or Deverell know, and we could get that sent out to you. And I also wanted to remind everyone to please fill out our evaluation feedback form that is in the chat box. And I'd like to thank Deverell for your awesome presentation. That is very helpful and useful material. And thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
All right, thank you guys.
I think I still have Donna Talks on. Donna, I can, if you're still on, I can send you some of that, send you a packet. I could send you some of the information.